as I've gotten deeper into this work and done so much work to hopefully embody it, like you get so much more energetically sensitive
Mm,
to who loves you for your core gifts, who
yeah.
makes you feel safe, and
Hmm.
who doesn't. And I don't like waste a millisecond anymore on trying to get people to like me who aren't meant for me.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Teen Talks. Today we have a special episode with a very special guest. This is someone who we met at GYLS, the Global Youth Leadership Summit. He was one of the other captains and mentors who was there. And he's just such an amazing person, connected so well with him. So we thought that we'd have him on because he has a lot of really cool things to share. So yeah, why don't you take it away? This is James Treadway. Just go for it. Introduce yourself, James.
Okay. So I teach a class 8 weeks on Zoom called Social Skills for Life. And I'm 39 years old right now, and it comes from probably since the age of 10, feeling incredible crippling anxiety,
Mm.
depression at times, even not really being sure I want to be alive because I was so unhappy with myself socially, didn't know who I was. I felt extremely awkward. I struggled with what friend group to be part of, and sometimes not really knowing who my friends were.
Mm.
On this, and yet on the surface, I bet if someone didn't know me that well, it would have looked like I had a lot of friends and had a lot going for me. Um, but the reality was just basically feeling like every interaction I had failed, and then just this like crushing judgment and beating myself up over it. What friend groups I could seem to be a part of, I always felt like I was on the outside and I was getting excluded or made fun of. Um, and variations of this went on all the way through into my 30s. And I would say since about the age of 20, when I took a year off in the middle of college, um, I that was sort of a quarter life crisis, and I've been pursuing healing and growing since then. Like I heard it said, like a person with their head on fire is looking for water.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so I've probably done more Tony Robbins seminars and other types of retreats than maybe anyone you've met, for better or worse. And just been reading every book I could on it, done tons of coaching, and I did 6 years of therapy, just searching so feverishly for answers. And then now at 39, I'd say in the last year or two, everything just completely fell into place. And all these years of work just clicked. And when I tell people now that I used to really struggle with social anxiety and insecurity, and they've only met me recently, they don't believe it.
Yeah.
And I've been called like a super connector by someone recently who I really esteem her judgment. And yet, when I imagine people seeing my social media posts or whatever who knew me in the past, seeing that I teach a class on social skills, like, what's this guy doing? He's not the person for that. Um, so yeah, I've come a long, long way and comes from a deep place of pain. I run a tutoring company. It's called GrowthWise. Up until a year ago, I still did SAT tutoring. I stopped it to go all in on this social skills for life class, which is for high school and university students. So I've been working with teenagers I mean, I've actually been tutoring since I was 11 years old for
Oh,
a
wow.
guy on the side, and then it became full time.
Mm.
So yeah, and I guess this is working with teens and coming from the pain of who I used to be has me in this place where I'm teaching this class, Social Skills for Life. And I feel guided to teach this. I've been very guided in the way it's all fallen into place, and it's like something powerful and brilliant. It feels like it's at work because so many kids are struggling with anxiety and insecurity. You know, at GYLS this summer, so it seemed like 9 out of 10 kids were wanting to come out of their shell, didn't know how to talk to people. And then in the uncertainty and the anxiety of not knowing what to do, just burying their head in their phone
Yep.
and scrolling,
Hmm.
doing whatever thing it looks like is so important, but it's not. They're just scared to actually face life, and
Hmm.
they feel really hollow and empty afterwards. Last thing, finally,
No, I
is
love it. Keep going.
I'm seeing these shifts in my students from the Social Skills for Life class, which I was always dreaming and wishing my SAT students would experience those kind of shifts in their confidence, etc., I would use the SATs as an excuse to work on their mindset. And, basically everything Tony Robbins is teaching. But now that I'm just going straight to the vulnerable personal issues with the social skills for life class, now I'm getting a sense that it's like truly life-changing and causing a ripple effect in how they're going back to their social skills and showing up. So that, like, yeah, just getting goosebumps as I talk
Yeah,
about it.
same.
Good.
Same. Yeah.
There's the intro.
We all have a similar, us three here have a similar mission, and it gives you goosebumps to know that we can make a difference in these kids' lives, because
Yeah.
so many are so scared and anxious and just don't know what to do. And we need to give them their lives. And for you, you struggled for a long time, and to take your life and turn it literally around shows it can be done. And we just want it to happen sooner for these kids rather than when you're in your 30s, or for me, when I'm in my 60s. So, that's the goal. And I think it's powerful, and we are going to change lives.
So Susan, you used to teach a class on social etiquette for elementary school teachers?
For elementary school kids, yeah.
Sorry, not teachers, kids. Yeah. I'm curious a couple of the things that you were teaching them at that age regarding social etiquette. I have a feeling it's going to plug into bigger themes.
Yeah. So basically eye contact and how to shake hands. Although now after the pandemic, I don't know about shaking hands anymore. I don't understand what's going on. But and then just like how to speak and start a conversation with people, and make the conversation go, and to be able to listen. To present yourself, with as positive and encouraging. And then also we all took it all the way down the line to even like table manners and that kind of stuff, because they are going to have to be in meetings or dinners or whatever at some point where they need to know how to have good manners. So
so the class I teach is 4 parts, and the first part is how to make others feel seen and heard in conversation. It's actually some of the exact same things that you were teaching. How do you start a conversation? How do you keep it going? Also, how do you get out of a conversation? There's actually a huge fear for kids. And so much why they're afraid to start a conversation is, what if I get trapped in one I don't want to be in? And they are like totally, I'm working with high school kids, and nobody's talked to them about this.
Right.
Let alone like you were getting to teach it to 7-year-olds. And so I just took my stepson to school yesterday and today, and we got him to school late, which is my fault. And the lady is writing down each of the kids' names who come in a little late. And Aiden's 5, and I said to Aiden, I was like, Aiden, when you meet her, look her in the eyes, and ask her what her name is. So he did it. She's Miss Gigi. And then today when he came in, I said, tell her, hi, Miss Gigi, sorry I'm late. And remember, and look her in the eyes. And he did it. And her face just lit up. Like he said her name and said, sorry I'm late. She, like, it made her day kind of look. And so now he's getting this extremely positive reward for having said someone's name and looked them in the eye. Every time he sees Miss Gigi in the halls, like he's gonna have a special place in our heart, And it's just like, the ripple effects, and what is this gonna do for him, and just his patterning, and what he expects to come in his interactions. And it comes back to this thing like, can you make them feel seen?
Right.
So, okay, I'll go on another rant. If you'll indulge me. I'm not giving you a chip.
Of course,
go for it.
But it's like, so right now, what I used to do socially is I'd be talking to someone, and I'd be worrying about what they think about me, and worrying I might do it wrong, and not sure if should I say this joke, and I hope that seems funny, and nothing's funny when you're that uptight. So all I'm doing is just spinning and thinking about myself. It's not that fun to be around someone who's just sitting and worrying about themselves.
Yes.
Right? It's not that great a vibe. And so I show students these different tools for how do you make the other person feel seen. So you have to kind of see where they're at and read how they respond. And so now you're paying attention to their reality, And it's a completely new paradigm as opposed to just be lost thinking about yourself.
Mhm.
And with these tiny little gestures, you can make them feel seen. It brings them all this safety, so they start to relax. Their guard comes down. The vibe starts to rise. It's contagious. And once I learned to do this, which really only happened the last couple of years, I started getting into these conversations that could start at 8 o'clock at night, but they could go till 5 in the morning. Like they were just that fun and that interesting, that vulnerable and that meaningful. And we were getting so much from it. So it's just like you going from spinning and worrying about yourself, which is all they know how to do because no one showed them anything else, to, oh my God, there's an infinite number of different worlds from everyone I meet, and anyone I meet, I can find a way to connect to. All I have to do is make them feel seen. And now we have this incredible vibe open up between us.
Right. That's amazing.
Oh,
Amazing. I love
yeah.
it. And then, so, you know, we have a lot of parents that'll be listening to this or
Yeah.
watching this. And,
Yeah.
you know, what would you suggest? You can tell you're already telling us like what it's like when you focus on yourself versus focusing on the other person. How
Yeah.
would you suggest, if they're not taking your class, to a parent,
Yeah.
to what would you suggest a parent does to help their kids start to make this paradigm switch?
Ah, interesting. So I'm actually working on it, obviously, with Aiden and his sister Mila. So Mila's 12. With them, I guess just when I'm around them, just in little moments, I look for where I can plant the seed
Mm-hmm.
of showing them how to acknowledge others, how to make others feel seen. So obviously, I showed you that little moment with Aiden. You know, look her in the eyes, say her name. And then when she did have a big smile, I said, Aiden, I said, you really made her smile. You know, just to highlight it, plant that seed,
Mm-hmm.
and so he can start to see cause and effect. Trying to think, I'm thinking on the fly here. I haven't thought about exactly the question you just asked, but with Mila, and Mila's getting good at it too. I think I playfully, in the interactions with her mom and all of us when we're hanging out, I'll playfully just call out how she could make one of us feel more seen. And she's now starting to see how I'm doing it in conversation all the time.
Mm.
And I'll watch her acknowledge me sometimes, or she'll compliment me sometimes. She'll be like, good acknowledgement. And I didn't even realize I did it. So she's starting to notice it and play with it. And she's now going to school. And I can guarantee she's starting to use it with her classmates and stuff.
And how old is she?
She's 12.
12. Okay.
And she told me how a year ago she stopped using put downs. She was putting other people down.
Oh.
Just and she decided to stop. And she's going to school right now, and she is so excited and happy to go to school. Like she doesn't want to be anywhere else.
That's amazing.
It's phenomenal. Like I can tell she has so much fun there. So I
And
want
why
to
do
be
you think why do you think that change had happened? What was it, because
great.
of her being more focused on others rather than herself? What do you
Great
think
question.
caused that?
Oh, yes, I definitely want to say that's what happened, at the risk of giving myself and everything we were talking about way too much credit. What else? I mean, another thing I always wanted to pepper in, and maybe this relates back to your original question better. Okay, so this skill of acknowledgement is how do you make others feel seen?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the concepts that comes with it, I call it an obvious energy of invitation, which is if somebody doesn't have an obvious energy of invitation for what you're about to say, it's not the time to say it. You're failing to meet them where they're at. If I'm saying something to you that I kind of already know you're not really up for hearing. So as parents, you constantly want to preach, but I think what parents often do is they're not reading the energy of who they're talking to, and realizing that the door is closed right now. So don't be trying to shove something in. And in fact, that'll create resentment and even less openness later. So you have to get really delicately attuned to the energy of the other person to see, you know, are they open, or would they be excited to hear what I'm about to say? And for a lot of these relationships, 99% of the time is no, they're not excited. And so it's a little hard at first because then I can't preach my lesson in the vain hope that you'll hear it. They weren't going to hear it anyway, but you still have hope and keep doing it.
Mhm.
pissing them off as a result. And so I think that's one of the principles of making others feel seen and reading their energy. Are they really kind of excited to hear what I'm about to say? And so part of what we'll teach is if they don't have an obvious energy of invitation for your opinion or your story or your, insight, it's not the time to give it. So what do? Acknowledge them where they're at.
Mm.
Mhm.
They're not dying to hear what you have to say. All they really want to hear is an acknowledgement of themselves.
Yeah.
So I
And
think,
that's not only that's true for our kids dealing with other kids, but very true for us as parents who are dealing with our own children, especially teenagers.
oh my God, so massively true. And I will say this, a certain type of kid that comes to us a lot is one who is kind of missing the signals of the kids around them.
Mhm.
And so then the friendships aren't sticking. And man, is that lonely and painful for that kid.
Mhm.
But the dot's connecting for me right now. And it's like, are you catching the signals of others responding positively or not to what you're saying? I can already see this is like, we're just like building up part of the curriculum right now. Uh, yeah, and it's like just and man, is that so alive with the parenting and kid dynamic.
Mhm.
Really have to
Yeah.
read their signals and get out of your own paradigm
Right.
and see how can I meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll give a
So,
really good book on this real quick. Sorry.
Yeah.
Uh,
no.
there's a book called Liberated Parents, Liberated Families, something like that.
Put it
It's
in the
by
show notes. We'll get that.
yeah, cool. And it's by the same authors who wrote How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
It was their book before that. Not as catchy a title, but actually a better book. And those two authors were new moms and they took a parenting class with this Israeli parenting expert. I'm gonna not. And what that guy writes about making others feel seen and heard is like some of the absolute most beautiful language I've ever written, I've ever read about anything.
Wow.
And man, does that show how to like really meet kids where they're at, um, in this delicate way that we're talking about.
Mhm.
Delicate but powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely find out what that book is and put it in there because I want to read it.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we'll put it down there for sure.
I want to reread
I
it.
was like, as you were talking, James, I'm just thinking about like we've talked about this quite a bit, the whole thing about connecting, right? Like connecting with your teen, if you're a parent, or just connecting in general is such an important thing because that's where it all starts.
Mhm.
Um, and communication is so much deeper than just talking to someone, right?
Oh my
And
God.
there's so much depth to it. And I'm sure like, it's part of what you teach, but also what you've experienced from, a very young age. And it's interesting how much of an impact it can actually have on someone's confidence, right? As soon as like they make that switch of getting out of themselves and then they're getting out of their head and actually start to think about how they can make other people feel, they're
Yeah.
giving themselves so much more power,
Oh
right?
my God. Yeah.
And I love how you're framing everything because it just makes so much sense. Like just hearing it is like, yeah, I mean, yeah, that makes so much sense. It's true. Um, Now, you kind of talked about your story from when you were younger and how that all came about.
Hmm.
Is it because from a very young age you had these challenges that you've decided to work with younger people, or like where did that choice really come about?
I wonder about this. I remember this one moment I was in high school. I was like a junior in high school. I was just looking at the teacher, and it just suddenly clicked for me how someone could choose to be a teacher of teenagers because they were looking to like right some wrong from when they were a teenager. I just
Mm.
remember it. And at the time, I really thought it was about, oh, these teachers. And now think back to that, and was that just a complete premonition of my own path?
Mm,
Oh,
Really?
interesting.
Yeah. And I'd also say, so the fourth part of the class is about learning and knowing what's called your core gifts or your superpowers. It's from an author, Ken Page. Um, his book is called Deeper Dating. It's about finding your partner.
Hmm.
mhm,
Now, I don't get into that with our students, but Ken Page's insight was for you to love yourself, you have to know and appreciate and protect your superpowers. If you're not aware what they are, you're going to fail to really take care of them.
mm,
Mm.
It's like you don't know you've got a pineapple plant in the backyard. You're not going to give it the right water and light and weeding that it needs. You need to know that it's there and what it is and how it needs to be taken care of. So your core gifts are the parts of you that, you know, when your friends or family who know you really well think of just, you know, oh, what, that is so distinctively Rayhan, or that is so Susan. You know, what quality is it that's sticking out to them so much that makes them smile? Those are your core gifts.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I think I have a lot of range. Like I was a jock and athlete growing up, but then you know, I was an artist and painter, and I could be extremely shy and awkward, yet I was also the class president for 4 years.
What?
Uh, and yeah, I know it doesn't make sense. It's
No,
confusing.
it doesn't.
And then,
Now I hear what you're saying about people wouldn't have believed it that
right.
you had that insecurity, but because you were class president?
Yeah. Yeah. And well, I had these incredibly ambitious parents who like pushed me into it.
Okay, there you
Um, but but I was able to win it too. It was confusing. And then
go.
and then meanwhile, like in college or since then when I go to workshops, I'm always the one guy in a room full of like 11 other women. You know, a communication workshop or art history in college. Like, so I just have a lot of range, and it's been confusing for me. And
Mhm.
so many times I've been like, who am I? I
Yeah.
don't, and I couldn't. And so I didn't know that like this range is actually one of my superpowers. I was fighting it. I was always trying to define myself so I could know who I am. But actually that is kind of a superpower in itself. And I think it probably allows me to work with and connect with kids.
Mhm.
Because there is maybe just more of an accessible little boy in me. I don't know. Something along these lines might have something in the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that's some of what we teach too is that, and you need to be learning self-awareness. So many people just don't even know who they are. They don't know what they want. They don't know, like they're just living day to day and they don't even think about what do I want out of my life?
Yeah.
And that really takes introspection and really takes time and to like focus on what is my superpower and how can I use my superpower to make my life better and all of those things. So that's so important. And I love how you struggled for so long to figure out what it is, but it's this broad range and that makes so much sense. It is a superpower.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like barely waking up to this now, 39. Um, two things that come to me on what you're saying, Susan. One of them, so I'll tell you that the third part of the class is this thing called Go for No.
What is it called?
Go for No.
Go for no. Okay.
Rayhan, we didn't talk about this, did we?
No, not everything, no.
Go for No is the idea, it's the tiniest little book you've ever read. And the idea of it is if you're not getting rejected or ignored or failing, um, you're not going for it. You're not going for what you want
Love
because
that.
that's part of the game. Those
Hmm.
are the misses. Play any sport, you're gonna miss more than half in any sport you play, basically. So those are the times where the person doesn't answer your call, or didn't think your joke was that funny, or doesn't want to come hang out, or didn't give you an A on the project, whatever it is. But you went for the thing you cared about, and you gave yourself a chance to either succeed or fail. And so go for no basically means you want more successes, you need to get rejected more. And so you make
Mm.
rejections your goal. And so in the
Mm.
class, what we'll say is like, all right, guys, you got to get rejected this week. Come back next week with a story of you. And it's really cute. Kids will. This one girl, she was afraid to ask her friends if they wanted to get lunch. She was a freshman in college. And you never think that, but for some people, and we all have our weird stuff we get scared about, and truth be told, we're holding back on some little thing that is scary to us.
Hmm.
And then you go for it, and you're like, oh my God, there's nothing to be scared of. And yeah, she texted her friends, and they came out to lunch with her. So she didn't have a rejection yet. So she has to keep going. She has to keep trying things. And all of it, and you start to find that all these things you were so afraid of, there's nothing to be afraid of. Even if you do get rejected, it's fine. When you get rejected, you learn like 5 times more than any other experience.
Ah,
And
I
and
love
it,
that how you use
yeah,
the make it so simple. Go for no. I mean, that is
yeah,
so simple, especially for a young person to just go, okay.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. And so I think this generation grew up with phones the whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, Rayon, tell me, you'd be able to tell me better than we can. Like anything dumb you did could be caught on a phone and go viral
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
sent around to everybody. I'm guessing on Snapchat would be the avenue. And so, and it's like, so you just get kind of gun shy
Yeah.
because you don't want to look weird or look stupid. And so the the anxiety around this stuff. I mean, that one dad, he told me a story that you know, his kid wanted to get a job and they saw in the ice cream parlor a help wanted sign. He said, "Oh, you know, they're looking for someone. Go in and ask." And I forget if I think it was a son who just sat in the front seat. He was 16 years old and could not get out of the car to go in there
Mm-hmm.
and see about the job that was available and burst into tears.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it's just like, so this goal for no thing is probably, I'd say different students at different parts I like the most, but this is probably the most popular part of the class. You know, this other kid, he just kind of he thought it was kind of cute and funny. He had these little figurines and he just went through school one day and was handing out these little figurines to everybody. And just like a playful, funny little gig that he just wouldn't have shown himself.
Yeah.
And then this other guy I was working with, he just started college this fall, and he was really scared about making friends in college. He hadn't really made friends growing up, but then when COVID hit and everything moved totally onto the internet socially, he finally could connect with some kids and made some really good friends. But he was afraid that once he was back in college now and it's in person, he wouldn't make friends again. And I got to know him through the class 101, and he's a phenomenal person.
Mm.
He's so smart. He's so funny. He's so sweet. And he was just really shy and scared, and his self-esteem was, you know, on the floor when it should be up here.
Mm-hmm.
And his dad just texted me that like he's having such a good time at college, like he won't even call his dad back. Um,
Uh,
and so he you can't find yourself. You can't find your superpowers. You can't find your path in life if you're not out there freaking doing things.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just retreating into the phone, you never find out who you are,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's the end of that long speech.
Yeah.
No, I
It's so
think it is
true.
so true.
Mm-hmm. It's so true, especially in today's world. Like our phones are such a, it's becoming a reflex. It
Yeah.
is just becoming a reflex. You mentioned this, James, about how, you know, even at GYLS, right?
Mhm.
When some of the kids during the event, when they weren't feeling comfortable or there was some of that anxiety or whatever it was, they just revert to their phones. Like their
Yep.
heads would just go down straight to their phones because it was almost like their safe space,
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
which is crazy, right?
Fail
For
in
that
here,
to be
man.
the case.
You
Mm,
can't fail in here.
yeah, you can't.
That's true. That's very
Everything's
true.
catered for you now too. The algorithms and everything. It's like they're giving you exactly what you feel you want and need in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
and you can just escape. You can escape in that way, and it's like a drug. It's really like a drug.
And it's a trap. And think about because I notice after my students start to get like the go for no glow, their posture changes.
Hmm.
Really like Tony would talk about, right? It's
Yeah.
that 2 millimeters back.
Yeah.
This is hitting me right now, but like, what is the posture of the phone?
It's
Yeah.
very low. Yeah.
Right? And I swear I see this different aura on them.
Hmm.
God, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's why we do what we do, right? I mean, just to
Yeah.
see it a change, like even that small
Yeah.
is huge.
Oh, goosebumps. I and if you got a burning question, I'd love to hear it, but I also really want to tell you about the second part of class, which I haven't told you about yet.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
for it.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, this is good stuff.
Okay, good. Um, so the second part is about your nervous system. And at the risk of oversimplifying it, I just basically break it down to sympathetic nervous system response and parasympathetic
Mm-hmm.
nervous system response. And at the risk of telling you guys lots of stuff you already know, you know, sympathetic, call that stress, fight, or flight.
Hmm.
And, you know, your heart beats faster, your breathing shallower, stress hormones go up. And the voice in your head is the big one we highlight, is it gets critical, fearful, and mean.
Yeah.
And that one kids can really connect to.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You know, this one girl who before every dance practice and recital, she was just like going through all the worst things that could possibly happen, and just terrorizing herself.
Mm.
She just started high school. I'll tell you about her in a second. And the parasympathetic, I always have them remember it's like a parachute. Like you're just gliding calmly, peacefully down to the earth. Parasympathetic, you're sort of connected in flow. And your breathing's deeper and your heart rate's slower and well-being hormones are going up instead of stress hormones. And the voice in your head is honest and it's compassionate and wise. So once they get that, one thing is it's basically, you know, in those old shows, they got the angel and the devil. One's giving bad advice, one's giving good advice. That's real. Those are your two nervous systems.
Yeah.
Which voice are you listening to? And so this girl, for example, she just realized as she went into her first day of high school, like all the sympathetic stress, that voice, and she's just like, oh, I don't have to listen to that. Okay, how do you parasympathetic? Sports, meditation, yoga, prayer, nature, being with people make you feel really safe. And then we teach them this breathing and appreciation exercise. You guys want to do it with me?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
It's like 25 seconds. So 3 steps. So step 1, you just imagine breathing into your heart. So we'll do it for like 10, 15 seconds. And how are you guys feeling as you do that?
Calm.
Very
Yeah.
calm.
Or just, yeah, good. So step 2, we'll go a little deeper. Step 2 is all about appreciation. So you could pick a memory that you love from the past. How about this? So let's pick a quality about ourselves that we really just love and appreciate. It's like when we meet someone else who has that quality, we love it about them. Well, guess what? It's in you. What's a quality about yourself that you could really just appreciate? Just find one and we'll just breathe for 10 or 15 seconds and appreciate that you have that quality. Any little bit where you can just feel that appreciation for having that in you helps. How are you guys feeling now?
I'm
Happy and
smiling. It feels
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, you're in parasympathetic more than we were before. Step 3, this one's optional, is find something that causes you some stress and imagine asking your heart for guidance on how to handle it. Just relax and see what comes. You guys don't have to say what it was, but did you get a response in terms of the guidance from your heart?
Most definitely.
Yeah,
And
so
we know it. We know it deep within us.
yeah,
We just don't ever call on it. Is that right?
right. So you have this inner counselor. It's always there. It comes with the parasympathetic nervous system response. So it's your job to build up habits and rituals to keep you in parasympathetic so that it's that voice you're listening to, not the stressed out, critical, fearful, mean one.
Yeah.
Is it different you? Is it different life? You know, you think of your parent or whoever it is in your life who's consistently in that sympathetic response, like, man, if they knew how to come from their parasympathetic, this entire situation would be different.
Yeah.
And so kids don't have to be prisoners to anxiety anymore. And you look at all the anxiety stats right now, they're off the charts. And so, you know, think about making others feel seen and heard. What's so brilliant about it is it makes people feel safe and it puts them in the parasympathetic.
Yeah.
So they're learning how to put others in parasympathetic. They're learning how to put themselves in parasympathetic. And then they're having the courage to just go for it and have fun with rejection and failure. And then they start to get a sense of what their unique gifts are. And it's like the self-love, the self-esteem. They start to like feel excited about the path ahead of them, as opposed to, oh my God, the world is terrible. I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm so anxious, because that's actually what most of them are. But something so different is so freaking possible. It's ridiculous.
Mm.
know?
Yeah.
James,
Wow.
like one thing I do want to say, when I met you and I spent that week with you, you embody everything that you just talked about. Like everything. That is part of you. You definitely vibrate that energy. And I want to ask a question now. What are some of the things that you do that you can share with the listeners as well and the viewers that help you tap in to that parasympathetic nervous system and really just embody that as well and live that way? Because I think that, going back to kind of what you were saying as well, of one of the ways that teenagers will pick things up from their parents is because the parents are doing things and then they're going to notice it and then they're going to be like, oh, wow, look, mom and dad are doing it like this. Maybe I should do it. Maybe I should try it. Right. So, yeah, it's like, can you give us some like maybe tips or things that you do, things that have worked for you, things that you have used to tap into that a little bit more?
Yeah. So I mean, I can answer. I'm not trying to blow smoke at you. I can part the beginning of the answer is a compliment, Rayhan. Um, like Susan, when I was interacting with Rayhan that week at GYLS, I don't know. I almost cannot think of someone I've ever felt safer around than with Rayhan.
Yeah.
Like I could make corny, terrible jokes with Rayhan all the time. Like I could go to the edges of my zaniness and silliness and where it like wasn't even funny. And all I would get was love and a smile beaming back from him. And I
100%.
was like, and it felt so good. It actually made it funny. It was like I couldn't fail with him.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh my God, like I have not, I can't think of anyone else where I've experienced to that depth. So if I'm around Rayhan, yeah, I'm gonna be in a parasympathetic place, and so as I've gotten deeper into this work and done so much work to hopefully embody it, like you get so much more energetically sensitive
Mm.
to who loves you for your core gifts, who
Yeah.
makes you feel safe, and
Hmm.
who doesn't. And I don't like waste a millisecond anymore on trying to get people to like me who aren't meant for me, for whom my set of core gifts is not their favorite flavor of ice cream.
Yeah.
And I always use this ice cream metaphor with the class. It's like, I'll ask you guys, when you guys go get ice cream, what's like your go-to flavor?
Triple
Cookies and cream.
chocolate, dark
Triple chocolate
chocolate.
or what?
Cookies and cream.
Okay, the cream, nice. I swear almost every time I ask someone, they say a different flavor. It
Mm.
was just fascinating, right? And it's like every time you go in and get triple chocolate, like, does cookies and cream need to be taking it hard on itself? No way. They don't need
That's
like,
a great, I love that.
and so all of us are triple chocolate for someone when it comes to
Mhm.
friends, someone when it comes to romantic partner, and also for path in life with work.
Mhm.
And so I think waking up to all that has helped me parasympathetic wise. I've gotten a much better appreciation for nature. I
Mhm.
see studies about it. All the spiritual texts have always talked about what nature does. And I think
Yeah.
it puts in a more parasympathetic place. Um, Going to surrounding myself in environments like GYLS, Tony Robbins seminars, other retreats with people who just want to grow and love and be vulnerable and honest and supportive,
Mhm.
parasympathetic, right?
Mhm.
Um, Before we did this podcast, I like had an hour and a half and I was like, definitely gonna get my workout in. I could feel how my ego didn't want to do it, but I
Mm.
just know how good it is and important for me it is, and I make a meditation out of it. There's no way that workout wasn't gonna get done.
Yeah.
Um, so and it's like if whatever those practices are, it could be sports, it could be of course meditation. I've gotten a lot more serious recently about meditation. And I catch myself in the day because I get to teach this all the time. I notice when that critical, fearful, mean voice is going, sympathetic nervous system. And so I'm very sensitive to it now, and I don't put the music or the podcast on in the car.
Mm.
And I do instead the breathing and appreciation we did together. Because I know that wherever I show up to next, I'm not going to be worth much until I'm back in parasympathetic.
Mhm.
One last one, Rehan, I'll share, which I just learned. So I went to Burning Man last week.
Oh,
Mm.
wow.
and a download came to me, which I think the seed was planted by that book, Celestine Prophecy. Have you guys heard of or read that?
No.
Heard of it.
Yeah, it's blowing my mind. And I got to really workshop it and play with it at Burning Man, which I went for the first time. But it's basically just when you're in a hard interaction with someone, but really anytime, put your attention on their higher self.
Mm.
You know, we all show up to each other in our ego and our wounds and our BS, but we all have a higher self who really does know better, who, when we're in a parasympathetic state, has total clarity and compassion for the whole situation. You could argue that's our soul. And so when I talk to someone in a hard situation, that's one of the things we teach. If the person's in a sympathetic nervous system response, they can't hear you. Don't try to
Yeah.
say anything with your point to them. All they can hear is an acknowledgement of themselves. And so if I put my attention on their higher self, or you could say almost their parasympathetic self, while I'm talking to them, I just relax and surrender in my own body to whatever shows up. I notice I am not reactive to all their ego hooks and wounds that would spin me out into sympathetic and stress. So as I talk to them, put my attention on their higher self, and then totally relax in my body, and I notice I'm responding so much better than I used to. Probably I'm keeping myself in that parasympathetic response. Yeah.
Love that. Love
How's
that.
it sound
That sounds.
yeah.
We talk a lot about on the podcast and things about ego, and so our ego is really doesn't serve us, you know, and oftentimes we do things as parents to our children based on our ego, not what they need, and same with ourselves.
Yeah.
Right, we do things to harm ourselves out of ego and not what we need. So getting rid of that ego and having to be right and having to, you know, to be the one that's up here and everybody else is down here, and how am I going to prove myself? How am I going to catch up? To get rid of that and go into the, like you said, the parasympathetic state where you just, it's not that. It's now.
You know, Susan, what do you have kids?
What?
Do you have kids?
Yes, I have 3 adults now, young
How old
adults.
are they?
25, 27, and 34.
Nice. You know, I had a moment last night with Aiden, who I told you about, and we were trying to get him to sleep, and I got very frustrated because he was just finding all these ways to delay and not go to sleep. And I know if he doesn't sleep enough, he's all cranky and messed up the next day. And I got short-tempered and impatient, and I
that
got,
never happened to me.
of course, right? I got too loud and too forceful, and it really scared him. And he was crying. And I realized I turned the volume up way too loud. I screwed up. And I think, you know, in our ego, in that sympathetic stress response, we don't want to say sorry. And we're so scared that we could be called out, and we need to prove ourselves. And I think something that's coming to me, you know, as you ask about parenting, is like apologies. And it models like it's okay that we screw up. And I'm sorry. Something about that is calming and maybe parasympathetic in a way, you know?
It is. And plus we also talk a lot about, as a parent, you're their biggest role model. I mean, they're watching you constantly. And if you can show that ego is out the door, and I can say, I'm sorry, because I do make mistakes. I just, like everybody does. But if we don't ever admit to them or say our sorry, or, you know, like come down to earth and go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry if I hurt you, or I didn't mean to do that, but, you know, own up to it, they're never going to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
And they're going to feel like they're bad, or, you know, it's just going to perpetuate.
There's are you guys familiar with Alison Armstrong? Have you heard of her? She does a lot of masculine, feminine stuff. Tony Robbins takes a lot of stuff from her, and she has a great line that I like, which is, an honest person is someone who tells you they lied. She does a lot of, she calls it animal instinct versus spirit, which is basically sympathetic, parasympathetic. And you know, from that animal survival instinct, sometimes we lie.
Mm-hmm.
It's not pretty.
Nope.
But that line, and that was something I was, you know, I remember saying recently, um, to Mila, who's 12, and it was like, and I was mad. I thought maybe she had lied to me about something. And it was an opportunity though, just to share that point. It's like an honest person is someone who can tell you they lied. It just gives us a little more grace and
Yeah.
freedom.
Yeah.
Because we're all struggling with
Mm.
feeling safe and how does our nervous system respond.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even adults.
Oh
And the
God.
kids, adults, I mean, kids can see it, but then
Yeah.
they don't know what that is,
Yeah.
you know? And if they can see us be vulnerable, then they can understand themselves when they make mistakes or do things that they didn't mean to do or whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't crush them.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. James, just before we kind of, you know, sign off, would you like to kind of share a little bit more? I know you know touched upon the things that you do and what you teach. Is there anything maybe that you want to share with everyone of like what's going on now, anything that's coming up, things that people can, you know, where people can find you, find your stuff, all of that? Because we're gonna put everything obviously in the description, but it'd be nice to hear about it from you.
So Social Skills for Life is the class. It's 8 Zoom sessions. It's either 4 students at once in the group class, or I do it one-on-one with kids. Um, and um, things coming down the line, people are like telling me I should write a book. I'll see when and if that clicks one day. I definitely want to shoot a video version of the class, and so people can just purchase the parts. It's like, hey, you know, is fearing rejection a huge thing for you? You'll just have like the video part on Go for No, for example. Or if anxiety is a thing, like let's do a short video course where you master the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
But that I don't know. It's just you
Follow
know,
you on social media, maybe?
yeah, sure. It's at Social Skills for Life is the Instagram handle.
Okay.
What I was gonna say is I was driving in the car a couple weeks ago, and this like wave of energy came over my whole body, and it was like I'd never experienced before, and it just felt so tickled and touched that I get to be doing this work with these kids, and they're getting these lessons so
Mm-hmm.
much younger than us, you know,
Yeah.
fresh from high school, getting to learn about the nervous system and know which voice in our head is talking about, like, oh my God. Um, and I knew I wanted to teach acknowledgments and how to make people feel seen. And when I first launched the class, I had that. And I was like, well, I taught it in 3 or 4 weeks. I was like, well, shoot, I got 5 more weeks to fill. What do I do? And it just came to me one by one. The nervous system piece, the Go for No, and then know your superpowers. And so I think it feels like I'm being guided. There's
Mm.
something way wiser than,
You are,
right?
without a
And so,
doubt.
and in that, but you can't hear your guidance and sympathetic and stress and ego. No,
Mm-mm.
you have to move yourself to parasympathetic, and then it just starts showing up. And so I'm so curious to see where this will go. I just feel like I have my little baby here, and I'm just
Yeah.
feeding it. And God knows what it's going to grow into, you know?
Yeah.
So that's kind
Well,
of the
and
plan.
we are going to touch base with you later on and find out what happened, because this was such a valuable conversation. I think you've opened some eyes for parents who are listening, and even if they have their child listen, which would be a really good thing. Um,
Yeah.
Having
And
you
I'd
on here has
even
been a huge, huge blessing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd even love to do a part two at some point. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if honestly, for time's sake, obviously we kind of have to leave. But if it wasn't for that, I mean, this conversation I'm pretty sure could go on for ages. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
um, you know, let's make it happen and do
for
another one
sure.
of these and talk about other things as well because there's so much. I
Yeah.
mean, from not only from your experience, but just from the conversations that just flow. There's so much that can be shared. So let's do this again for sure.
Such
Yes.
an honor. Thank you
Definitely.
guys so much. It's such a
Yeah.
pleasure.
Thank you
Thank
for
you for
coming
being
on.
here.
Yeah.
We'll talk
Um,
more.
We
yeah.
will, for sure.
Cool.
And if
All
if
right.
anybody who's listening has questions for James or us or whatever, go ahead and put it in the comments, or feel free to reach out to us on social. You know all the stuff. We have it in there in the show notes. So yeah.
I'll give you the
Yeah.
email real quick. Is info@growthwise.us. Growthwise is a tutoring company that I run, and we teach the class through that umbrella. So info@growthwise.us, and can ask any questions about social skills for life.
There we
Perfect.
go. Perfect. All right. Well, take care, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you again next week. James, thank you again so much. It's been such a pleasure having you on, and look forward to seeing you again really
Yes.
soon on this podcast. But yeah, until then, feel free to like, subscribe, comment, follow the podcast, do all that stuff, and we'll see you next week. Take
Okay.
care, everyone. Peace.
Bye.